They laughed at him, called him nothing, told him he would never make it. But what if I told you that same boy, the one who was humiliated in front of his entire class, the one who had empty pockets, the one nobody believed in, is now the man everyone respects? This isn't just a story. This is a journey of pain, rejection, and a fight so real it will hit you hard. Because Marcus didn't grow up with privilege. He grew up watching his mother struggle every single day, working multiple jobs, barely surviving, but still smiling for him. And when he dared to dream big, when he said he wanted to become successful, they laughed. Not a small laugh, the kind that breaks you, the kind that makes you question your worth. And for a moment, he almost believed them. But here's the truth no one tells you. The world doesn't care about your dreams. People will doubt you. They will judge you based on where you are, not where you're going. Marcus faced rejection after rejection. No job, no support, no opportunities. Every door closed on him. And when he finally tried to build something of his own, he failed. Not once, not twice, but again and again and again. Imagine giving everything you have and still ending up with nothing. One night, he sat alone. No money, bills everywhere. Hope almost gone. And for the first time in years, he thought about quitting, letting go of the dream, accepting an average life, becoming exactly what they said he would be. But then something happened. A voice, a memory, a reminder. If you believe in yourself, that's enough. And in that moment, everything changed. Because sometimes the difference between failure and success is just one decision. The decision to keep going. This is the story of a boy who had nothing, but refused to become nothing. A story that will make you feel, make you think, and maybe change the way you see your own life. So don't skip. Don't miss this. Because what happens next will prove one thing. Never underestimate the person who refuses to quit. Welcome to Midnight Stories, Crescent Moon, where powerful stories come to life. Stories of struggle, success, betrayal, and redemption. If you believe in chasing dreams, if you love emotional, life-changing journeys, then you're in the right place. Subscribe now and let every story change you. They didn't just doubt him, they humiliated him. The classroom was noisy that morning. Students talking, laughing, passing notes. It was just another ordinary day in a public school somewhere in America. But for Marcus, it was about to become a moment he would never forget. "All right, class," the teacher said, clapping her hands to get everyone's attention. "Today, we're going to share what we want to become in the future." One by one, students stood up confidently. "I want to be a doctor. I'm going to be a professional athlete. I want to own a big company like my dad." Each dream was met with smiles, nods, even applause. Then the teacher called his name. "Marcus, your turn." For a second, everything felt silent. Marcus slowly stood up from his seat at the back of the classroom. His uniform was slightly faded, his shoes worn at the edges. He clutched a wrinkled piece of paper in his hand. His dream written on it, rewritten multiple times the night before. His heart was racing. He could feel everyone's eyes on him. He swallowed hard and began to speak. I want to become a successful businessman one day. I want to build something big and help my mom live a better life." There was a pause, just 1 second of silence. And then the room erupted. Laughter. Loud, uncontrollable laughter. "You!" one boy shouted, nearly falling out his chair. "Bro, you can't even afford new shoes," another added, pointing at Marcus's feet. "Businessman? Man, you'll be lucky to get a job," someone else said, shaking their head. Even a few students in the front row covered their mouths, trying to hide their giggles. Marcus stood there, frozen. His fingers tightened around the paper until it crumpled. His face burned with embarrassment. His chest felt heavy, and his voice disappeared. He looked at the teacher, hoping, just hoping, she would say something, defend him, stop the laughter. But she didn't. She simply sighed and said, "Okay, Marcus, thank you. You may sit down." That hurt even more, because in that moment, it didn't feel like anyone believed in him. Not his classmates, not even his teacher. Marcus slowly sat back down, staring at his desk, trying to ignore the whispers still floating around him. Did you hear him? A businessman, you're right. That's actually sad. But what they didn't see was what was happening inside him. Because behind the embarrassment, behind the pain, something else was growing. A quiet voice. A voice that whispered, "One day, I'll prove them wrong." The final bell rang, and students rushed out of the classroom, laughing and talking as if nothing had happened. But for Marcus, everything had changed. He walked home alone. The streets were familiar. Cracked sidewalks, small houses, old cars parked along the road. This was his world. A world where dreams like his didn't seem to belong. His backpack felt heavier than usual, not because of books, but because of what happened. When he finally reached home, he paused at the door. He didn't want his mom to see his face like this. He didn't want her to know how much it hurt. But as soon as he stepped inside, she noticed. "Marcus? You okay, baby?" she asked, concern filling her voice. He forced a small smile. "Yeah, I'm fine." But she knew. She always knew. She walked over, gently placing her hand on his shoulder. "Talk to me?" For a moment, he stayed silent. Then it all came out. "They laughed at me, Mom." His voice cracked. "I told them I want to be a businessman, and they just laughed like it was a joke." Tears filled his eyes, but he tried to hold them back. "They think I'm nothing." His mother's expression softened, but there was strength in her eyes. She knelt down in front of him, holding his hands. "Listen to me, Marcus," she said firmly. "People will always laugh at what they don't understand." He looked at her, confused. She continued, "They see your situation, not your potential. They see where you are, not where you're going." Marcus wiped his tears, listening carefully. "Do you believe in your dream?" she asked. He hesitated for a second, then nodded. "Yes." She smiled. "Then that's all you need." "But what if they're right?" he whispered. She shook her head. "They're not living your life. They're not walking your path. And they don't get to decide your future." Her voice became stronger. "Son, the world may not believe in you, but if you believe in yourself, that's enough." Those words hit differently. They didn't erase the pain, but they gave him something stronger. Hope. That night, Marcus sat on his bed, staring at the same crumpled paper from school. For a moment, he thought about throwing it away. Maybe it was a stupid dream. Maybe everyone else was right. But then, he remembered his mother's words. Slowly, he picked up the paper, smoothed it out, and read it again. "I want to become a successful businessman." This time, he didn't feel embarrassed. He felt something else. Determination. He grabbed a pen and rewrote it. Neater, stronger, clearer. Then he taped it to the wall next to his bed, right where he could see it every day. That was the moment everything changed. Not when people started believing in him, but when he decided he didn't need them to. Because sometimes the loudest laughter creates the strongest fighters. And Marcus? He was just getting started. While they were sleeping, he was building a future no one could see. Marcus's life didn't magically change after that day. If anything, it got harder. Every morning, before the sun even rose, Marcus was already awake. The cold air slipped through the cracks of their small home as he quietly got out of bed, careful not to wake his mother. But most of the time, she was already up, standing in the kitchen, wearing her old uniform, preparing to leave for her first job. "You're up early again," she'd say softly, a tired smile on her face. Marcus would nod. "I wanted to help." And he meant it. At an age when most kids were still dreaming under warm blankets, Marcus was already learning what responsibility felt like. Sometimes he made breakfast. Other times, he just sat with his mom for a few minutes. Those quiet moments become the most valuable part of his day, because once she left, it was just him in reality. School was no easier. The laughter from that day didn't completely stop. It didn't happen as loudly anymore, but was still there, in whispers and looks, in the way people didn't take him seriously. "Hey, businessman." Some kids would joke when they passed him in the hallway. "Got any $1 million ideas today?" Another would laugh. Marcus heard it all. But now, he reacted differently. He didn't argue. He didn't fight. He didn't try to prove himself with words. Instead, he stayed quiet, focused, because deep down, he had started to understand something important. Talking about dreams doesn't make them real. Working on them does. After school, while other kids went home to relax, play games, or hang out with friends, Marcus's day was far from over. He worked, not in some fancy office, but wherever he could. Some days, he helped neighbors clean their yards, raking leaves under the hot sun, his hands getting rough and tired. Other days, he carried grocery bags for elderly people in the neighborhood, earning a few dollars. Sometimes he washed cars. Sometimes he ran errands. It wasn't much, but every dollar mattered, because Marcus wasn't just working for money. He was working for survival, and for something bigger, a future he could barely see, but refused to let go of. Evenings were the hardest. After a long day of school and work, his body would feel heavy, his legs ached, his hands were sore. Anyone else would have rested, but Marcus, he kept going, because the real work started at night. Their house wasn't perfect. Sometimes the electricity flickered. Sometimes the lights weren't bright enough. And on some nights, it was hard to even focus. But Marcus found a way. He sat at a small, worn-out table, surrounded by old books he borrowed from the school library. Books about business, about money, about people who started from nothing and became something. At first, it was difficult. Some words were hard to understand. Some ideas felt too big, too complicated. But Marcus didn't quit. He read slowly, line by line, page by page. If he didn't understand something, he'd read it again and again, because he knew this knowledge was his way out. On weekends, Marcus spent hours at the public library. It became his second home, a place where no one laughed at him, a place where dreams didn't feel impossible. He would sit in the same corner every time, watching videos on old computers, learning everything he could, how businesses work, how money grows, how successful people think. He wasn't just learning facts. He was learning a mindset, a different way of seeing the world. While others saw limits, Marcus started seeing possibilities. But the journey wasn't easy. There were moments when the pressure felt too heavy, moments when he looked at his life and thought, why is it so hard for me? He saw other kids with better clothes, better homes, better opportunities. Kids who didn't have to work after school. Kids who didn't have to worry about bills. And for a second, just a second, he felt tired. Not physically, but emotionally drained. One evening, after an especially long day, Marcus sat outside his house, staring at the street. The sky was dark, the air quiet. His hands rested on his knees, his head slightly lowered. What if this doesn't work? He whispered to himself. What if I try all this and still fail? It was a scary thought, because he wasn't just dreaming for himself. He was dreaming for his mother, for a better life, for a way out. Just then, the front door opened. His mother stepped outside, noticing him sitting there. You okay? She asked gently. Marcus nodded, but this time, she could tell he wasn't. She sat beside him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he said quietly, I'm trying so hard, Mom, but it feels like I'm so far behind. She looked at him, her eyes filled with both pain and pride. Behind who? She asked. Marcus didn't answer, because deep down, he knew he was comparing his life to others, and that was breaking him. She placed her hand on his shoulder. Marcus, your journey is different, she said softly. You're not behind. You're being prepared. He looked at her. Prepared for what? She smiled. For something bigger than you can see right now. Her words didn't magically fix everything, but they gave him strength. Again, that night, Marcus went back inside, back to his table, back to his books, back to his dream. Because even though the world didn't see his struggle, even though no one was clapping for him, even though progress felt slow, he kept going, quietly, relentlessly. Because what people didn't understand was this. Success isn't built in front of everyone. It's built in silence, in late nights, in sacrifices no one notices, in moments when giving up feels easier. But you choose to continue. And Marcus, he was building something powerful. Not just a dream, but mindset, a discipline, a version of himself that the world would one day respect. But for now, he was still the boy no one believed in. And that was exactly what made his journey unstoppable. Even the strongest people have moments where they almost give up. Years had passed since that day in classroom. Marcus was no longer the quiet boy sitting in the back row. He had grown, stronger, wiser, more focused. But life didn't get easier. It just became different. After finishing school, Marcus believed things would finally start changing. He had worked harder than most people his age. He had sacrificed sleep, comfort, and fun. He had spent years preparing himself. This was supposed to be his time. But reality had other plans. He applied for jobs, dozens of them, then hundreds. Each application filled with hope, each response filled with disappointment. Thank you for applying, but we regret to inform you. The same message. Again, and again, and again. Some places didn't even reply. Others looked at him for a few seconds during interviews and dismissed him just as quickly. You don't have enough experience. We're looking for someone else. Maybe try again later. Marcus walked out of those buildings trying to stay strong, but inside it hurt because he knew something they didn't. He was capable, but no one was giving him a chance. So he did what he had always done. He created his own opportunities. Marcus decided to start something small, a business idea he had been thinking about for years. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't big, but it was a start. He used a little money he had saved from years of working. Every dollar earned through sweat and sacrifice. This was his moment, his chance to prove everyone wrong. At first, things seemed okay. He got a few customers, a little progress, a small sign that maybe, just maybe it was working, but then everything started falling apart. Customers stopped coming. Expenses increased. Problems he didn't expect started showing up, and slowly, that small progress disappeared. One evening, Marcus sat in his tiny apartment, staring at his phone. No new messages, no new orders, no new hope. He checked his bank account, almost empty. Years of saving gone, just like that. Maybe I rushed it, he whispered. But deep down, it felt like more than that. It felt like failure. Still, he didn't quit. Not yet. He tried again. A new idea, a new plan, a new approach. This time he was smarter, more careful, more prepared. I learned from my mistakes, he told himself. This time will be different. But it wasn't. The second attempt failed too, and then the third, each failure hitting harder than the last. Not just financially, but emotionally. Days turned into nights. Nights turned into sleepless hours. Marcus started losing something he had always protected, his belief. One cold night, everything reached its breaking point. Marcus sat alone in his apartment. The room was quiet, almost empty. A single dim light flickered above him. Bills were scattered across the table. Rent overdue, electricity warning, phone bill unpaid. His wallet sat open beside him, empty. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in years, he felt defeated. Not tired, not stressed, defeated. All this work, he said quietly, all these years. And for what? His voice echoed in the silence. No answer came. Tears slowly filled his eyes. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, heavy tears. The kind that come when someone has been strong for too long. Maybe they were right, he whispered. The words he had fought for years finally found their way back. The voices from his past, the laughter, the doubt, the judgment. All of it came rushing back. You can't do it. Be realistic. People like you don't make it. Marcus closed his eyes. For a moment, he believed them. He looked around his apartment. The same struggles, the same problems. Nothing had changed. Or at least, that's what it felt like. I tried, he said softly. I really tried. And for the first time, he considered giving up. Not fighting anymore. Not dreaming anymore. Just accepting reality. Getting any job. Living an average life. Letting go of everything he once believed in. It felt easier, safer, less painful. Marcus slowly stood up and walked toward the window. The city lights flickered in the distance. People were out there living their lives. Some successful, some struggling, some like him, lost. He placed his hand against the cold glass. This is it, he thought. I'm done. But then something happened. Not outside, inside. A memory, a voice, familiar, powerful, unshaken. Son, the world may not believe in you, but if you believe in yourself, that's enough. His mother's words, from years ago, clear as if she was standing right beside him. Marcus closed his eyes tightly. His breathing changed. His heart started beating faster. No, he whispered. No, I didn't come this far just to quit. He stepped back from the window, looked at the bills, looked at his empty wallet, looked at his situation, and something shifted. Yes, I failed. Yes, I lost money. Yes, things didn't work out. But I'm still here. That thought hit differently, because failure didn't mean the end. It meant he was still in the game. Marcus wiped his tears, took a deep breath, and sat back down at the table. This time, not as someone defeated, but as someone who understood something deeper. Success wasn't about never failing. It was about refusing to stay down. That night, Marcus didn't sleep, not because he was stressed, but because he was rebuilding. He took out a notebook, started writing. Every mistake, every lesson, every idea. This is where I went wrong. This is what I need to fix. This is what I'll do differently. For the first time, he wasn't guessing. He was learning, adapting, evolving, because this time, he wasn't just trying again. He was coming back stronger. And that night, the boy who almost gave up became the man who refused to lose. Because sometimes, the moment that almost breaks you is the moment that builds you into something unstoppable. It didn't happen overnight, but when it did, the world couldn't ignore him anymore. That night, the one where Marcus almost gave up but didn't, became the turning point of his life. Not because everything suddenly got easier, but because he became stronger. The next morning, nothing looked different. The same small apartment, the same unpaid bills, the same uncertain future. But Marcus, he was different. He no longer saw failure as the end. He saw it as information, as lessons, as a blueprint for what not to do. This time, he didn't rush. He didn't chase quick success. He slowed down and got smarter. Marcus went back to the basics. He studied the market more carefully. He paid attention to people's needs. He focused on solving real problems instead of just making money. Because now he understood something most people don't. If you help enough people, success follows. Days turn into weeks. Weeks turn into months. And slowly, things began to shift. His new idea, simple, practical, and focused, started gaining attention. At first, it was just a few people, then a few more. Then something unexpected happened. People started coming back. Not just once, but again and again. Your service really helped me, one customer said. I've never seen something like this before. Another added, you should grow this. It has potential, someone advised. For the first time, Marcus wasn't chasing validation. It was coming to him. He worked harder than ever. But this time it felt different, because now the effort was working. Every dollar he earned, he reinvested. Every mistake he made, he corrected. Every opportunity he saw, he took. There were still challenges, still long nights, still moments of doubt. But now there was progress, and progress changes everything. One evening, Marcus sat at the same table where he once cried over failure. But this time, there was something new, a smile. He opened his laptop and looked at his numbers. More customers, more growth, more stability. It's working, he whispered. Not perfectly, not massively, but enough to know he was on the right path. Months later, that small progress turned into something bigger. His business started getting attention beyond his neighborhood. People began sharing it online, talking about it, recommending it. And then it happened. One video, just one. A customer posted a short video about Marcus's journey, about who he was, where he started, and what he built from nothing. At first, it got a few views, then hundreds, then thousands, then millions. Overnight, Marcus's story spread across the internet. The boy no one believed in, from nothing to something, inspiring story you need to hear. People weren't just seeing his business. They were seeing him, his struggle, his persistence, his journey. Messages started flooding in, from strangers, from supporters, from people who saw themselves in his story. Your story gave me hope. I was about to quit, but now I won't. You proved it's possible. Marcus read every message, and for a moment, he just sat there, silent, because this was bigger than success. This was impact. Soon, opportunities started coming his way. Invitations, interviews, events. Would you like to share your story? We'd love to have you speak. You're an inspiration. The same world that once ignored him was now listening. One day, Marcus received an invitation that felt different, personal, powerful. It was from his old school. They wanted him to come back, to speak, to share his journey with the students. Marcus stared at the message for a long time. Memories came rushing back. The classroom, the laughter, the embarrassment. For a second, he hesitated. But then, he smiled. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I'll go." The day arrived. Marcus walked through the same school doors he once walked through as a boy full of doubt. The same hallways, the same walls. But everything felt different. This time, he wasn't invisible. Students whispered as he passed. "Is that him?" "That's Marcus." I saw his video. He stepped into the classroom. The same one. And for a moment, time stood still. The desks were the same. The board was the same. Even the feeling was familiar. But this time, there was no laughter, only silence. Not the silence of doubt, but the silence of respect. Marcus stood at the front of the room, looking at a new generation of students. Some confident, some unsure, some just like he once was. He took a deep breath and began. "Years ago, I stood where you're sitting right now," he said. "And when I shared my dream," he paused, a small smile forming. People laughed. The room stayed quiet, every eye on him. "But I didn't let that define me," he continued. "I didn't let their opinions become my reality." He looked around the room, connecting with every student. I wasn't the smartest. I wasn't the most talented. And I definitely didn't have the easiest life. He paused again. But I had one thing. I didn't quit. The words hit differently, because they were real. "You don't need everyone to believe in you," Marcus said. "You just need to believe in yourself long enough until the world has no choice but to see it." The room exploded with applause. But this time, it wasn't laughter. It was respect. As Marcus walked out of that classroom, he realized something powerful. He didn't just change his life. He changed his story. From the boy no one believed in, to the man no one could ignore. And somewhere in that room, a young kid sat quietly, holding on to a dream the world might laugh at, but not for long, because stories like Marcus's don't just inspire,